I'm kind of bored. Anything to do? Let's see. I can code. I can make art. I like video games. Wait, no. Wait. No, please, no. Yep, I did it. I'm making a video game. I've become what I most feared, a game dev. But how did it start? How did I go from a clueless buffoon to someone 2,000 hours deep into the sunk cost fallacy? Well, it all started with an idea. So, months ago, I was watching a video by the Stellar J about wizard games. Now, the video itself is pretty good. It has some good points and showcases some really cool games. But while I was watching, I couldn't help but think, what is the coolest wizard game I've played? And the answer I came up with was kinda surprising. It's... well, not a traditional wizard game. In Helldivers 2, you can input a series of archaic button presses, and from that summon the power of gods. Deus ex machina, reviving the very dead, orbital lasers. That's wizard as hell. But I did have a problem with it. Not an actual problem for the game, but something that I thought would have been cool. I think it's kind of a shame that you're limited to only 4 strategies. I understand that to have it be a good team game, and for each player to have their own role, creating a loadout, is important. But, imagine if you could use your knowledge to call in all the strategies. You could be a god of magic. And then I had it, my idea. What if there was a wizard game where you could cast any spell in the game as long as you knew it? And I had time, but I had a lack of understanding. And so I started on my little project. Pilgrim was born. Hey, before we get too deep into this, wishlist my game on Steam. It's available now. If you leave halfway through, just remember that my game's called Pilgrim Unto Shadow. Thanks very much. But what type of game would it be? I have this core idea, but a core idea does not a full game make. So let's extrapolate. We have the concept of being able to cast a lot of spells. What type of game framework would that work in? Well, there's a ton of options really, but personally I like me a Dark Souls game here and there. And if we want to have players be able to develop their own playstyle using the spells, then we want to create an environment where that playstyle can be tested, so a harder game could work. And a game where learning spells is based on your own intelligence as a player, that seems kind of Metroidvania to me. So, we have it. A Souls-like Metroidvania. Oh, well that's kinda basic, definitely an ambitious project, but one I feel I have a chance to pull off. I know a lot about the genres, I like them. I think we can work with this. Next, I have to decide on how the game actually plays. Something interesting about the classic Souls-like formula is that it limits players' attack options. A Souls game is built around the correct execution of difficult combat mechanics. This creates a very engaging risk-reward dynamic with a high bar for success, so that when success is achieved, it is through skill, not luck. This means that they focus heavily on defensive mechanics, while keeping any offensive options as simple as possible. One light attack, one heavy attack, simple. But our core concept is essentially just a very complex offensive option, so we can't really rip a full 3D Souls-like. Same issue shows up with a Metroidvania. Classically, you just use movement mechanics to create difficulty, and that ramps up as you go on, and collect more abilities. That also doesn't really work here because our toolkit is so scattershot that we can't really create a few very specific pieces of movement tech to gate progression. So it kind of puts us in a weird spot, right? We've got a really cool idea and a genre we want to work in, but on the surface, they're somewhat incompatible. So how do we make this work? Well, here's my idea. We refine the core of Souls-like, trimming it down to its essential elements. and in that space that we cut away, we add in more complex attacking mechanics. So I did a bit of thinking, and here's what I got for the core of Souls-like. It's dodging. A perfect defensive option that can guarantee your safety if it's performed correctly. The same is true for a Sekiro parry or a perfect block. When performed correctly, you completely avoid all damage. The essential elements of this are direction and timing. So, if we can simplify our defensive mechanic to highlight direction and timing, then we have captured the essence of Souls-like. But now what do we fill it with? We have a big hole in our combat system where we took out all the parts that wouldn't fit, and now we need to put something in. Reformat it so it works. Our ideal system has very complex attacks where strategy is important. So in what games are those things true? Turn-based strategy. I remember an interview or something where a guy mentioned that the core draw of turn-based strategy is the ability to create complex plans using multiple toolkits in synergy. That is kind of what we're going for. You want people to be able to create complex game plans using all of their spells. So I ended up taking a little bit of turn-based strategy, more as a vibes-based reference, but still. I simplified the perspective down to 0 dimensions. You dodge in response to attacks, choosing one of 3 directions to dodge. Enemies attack in set directions, and you match the direction of the enemy attack to the appropriate dodge. Wait for the right time, then dodge to take no damage. After these attacks, players will have larger openings where you can cast spells and take advantage of our complex attacking mechanics. This lets us have a real balance between complex planning and reacting to enemies in a very dynamic way. Alright, I think we're getting some. Let's look at what we have. And, oh, did we just make, like, DDR with extra steps? Yeah, I think we kind of just made a theoretical rhythm game. The same core loop as a rhythm game, at least, except it's more improvisational than it is planned. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The other thing that I found while doing this is that the stratagems from Helldivers, which we're taking inspiration from, are a lot like fighting game combos. I like it as a vibe, though I don't know where it's gonna fit in the future. We'll see how it goes. And now we have an idea, one we can actually start with and build upon to get a full game. And that meant I needed to actually start coding. True development. No longer could I sit idly by in the realm of theory. Instead, I needed to dive in and figure out how to actually do the thing I had set myself to do. So I began Gamedev. For the first step, I chose an engine. GameMaker works well for 2D games. It seemed the best option. Well, not really the best. For the first one I found, I hadn't put too much research into it, let me be very clear. But with the choice made, it was time to figure things out. I wanted to get something nice and easy down first. So I got a guy to move, made a box, had him wander around there, fix the issues with going in diagonals. You know, there are like a billion tutorials out there for this sort of easy, simple stuff, and I was able to follow them fairly well. After that, we did some other cool things, like getting a room transition and figuring out how walls work. But with the easy stuff out of the way, we need to actually do design. We needed to make the core combat system to see if the game had any legs to stand on, and if it would be fun at all. The actual process of design is really interesting. I'm familiar enough with coding that I wasn't too stuck up on how to actually make the system that functioned, but the process of iteration and development was remarkably engaging. To start off, we put our player in the middle of the screen, let it dodge in a couple directions, then we made enemies that would choose an attack at random. The last foundational element that we needed to add was the room controller that would listen to when the enemy was attacking and compare that to the state of the player to determine if the dodge was successful or unsuccessful. With this basic system implemented, we could then move on to actual design, the key of which would be player controls. My initial concept was to have 2 different types of attacks. One, a simple sword slash, where you could just press a button and deal some damage. The other, a more complex casting, where you could actually input combos. After implementing both of these, well, to me at least, the combos just felt infinitely more interesting. So I pivoted. Now both attacks and spells bring you into a dedicated combo state, where you press the directional buttons for the combos. The order in which you press them creates a combo, shown on the side of the screen. Then you press the confirm button to activate the finisher or cast the spell. To add on to this, I added healing and fleeing, so that you could recover in combat, and so you could run away if the going gets rough. For both of these, I wanted to use a similar control scheme to the attacks. So for healing, you pull out the bottle and shake it up by pressing different directional buttons. Then you do the same confirm button to drink. And for fleeing, you mash up and down to increase your odds of running away. Yeah, I think it's starting to come together. To distinguish between attacks and spells, we have attacks deal small incremental damage as you press the directional inputs. Additionally, for attacks, if you press back instead of a small attack, you will instead dodge backwards, so you have some level of defense. And so I have it. Combat. It's certainly unique. Kinda has a Punch-Out vibe, which is a good thing, and it works. But now we need to make it feel good. As a 14 player, I know the actual series of inputs you press is not what makes the game interesting. It's how you feel and what you think about when you're pressing those buttons. Feedback with both sound and visuals, impact with damage. All of these things, they are what determine how good a game feels to play. And I need to make pressing combo buttons interesting. I added a ton of juice. We got blood sprays, screen shake, sound effects, the whole 9 yards. And it's working for me at least. It's fun to press the buttons, and the feedback is reliable. The last step was to actually make it combat. So we add in player health and enemy health, then we let the enemies actually deal damage, and with that, we have a game that we can play. It didn't look nearly as good as it does on screen right now. Fun fact, I didn't start keeping version control until relatively recently, so I don't have the ability to go back and get footage for all my progress, but it is what it is. The game was fun. It was a real game, and that had already been more than I had expected to make. So I decided to keep going. The sunk cost fallacy got me, guys. It was time to make a video and make this a real project. And that was October, and it's May now? What? When did it become May? So yeah, I sort of haven't posted anything about this anywhere because I don't really like posting stuff. Well, not until recently anyway, and that's more of a forced act than something natural. But on the bright side, that means I've done a lot more work on this since the period the video is talking about, and it's gotten much further along. Let's see, we've got characters, combat sprites, exploration sprites, cutscenes. I made a bunch of spells and weapon combos. I added UI to combat. I added dialogue and text boxes. I added some particle effects to the game, lighting, enemies that explore, multiple types of enemies. Redid a few types of them too. I added boss fights, added an item system where you can equip items. You can get them into your inventory. I added an inventory menu, I added NPCs, multiple scenes, multiple cutscenes. I added a few rooms you can explore. I went through and had multiple stages with an art style, changed the art style, found a palette, experimented with lines, different sizes, came up with what you see. I added the system for dialogue, I added an overview, I added the ability to change the size of the screen. The list is really long, actually. So let's just say it's been productive. We're pretty deep into it now. It's going well, I think. I really like what I've come up with. The game is called Pilgrim, Pilgrim Unto Shadow, wishlisted on Steam. It's just recently on Steam. And yeah, going forward, I plan to keep working on this. I am really enjoying what I'm doing, and I think the game will be fun. I'm trying to build towards a demo, which hopefully should come out sometime this year. I also plan on making more devlogs going over what I've actually learned from making the game and my development process. This will hopefully help some of the people watching. It will definitely help me and keep me in line on my actual goals for the project. I also plan to continue making videos about games and their stories because that's something I like to think complexly about. Anyway, it's been really fun making this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Wishlisted on Steam, etc. Like and subscribe, you know the drill. Anyways, Void, it's a long road out there. Take it easy.